Welcome to the Business of Engineering, the official podcast from Element 14, the world's largest online community for makers, engineers and tech professionals. In this series, we're going to be talking to entrepreneurs and business leaders about some of the challenges and opportunities involved in working with the tech sector. I'm John Lucas, and I'm happy to be joined today by Melissa Beckett, Entrepreneur Acceleration Manager at Natwest, Sam Ducker, CEO at Lucky Duck, and Richard Mickey, CEO of The Marketing Optimist. So would you like to introduce yourselves to get started?
Yeah, hi. So my name's Melissa, and as you mentioned, I run the Natwest Entrepreneur Accelerator hub in Newcastle. So there are 12 hubs around the UK, and I'm based up in Newcastle. And my job is ultimately to work with businesses of all stages, from idea stage right through to scale-up businesses, to help them grow and scale. And part of my role is talking about marketing within our coaching sessions and really helping them accelerate their business.
Yeah, my name's Sam, and I run a design and development agency based here in Leeds, and I actually met these guys through being on a NatWest program. And basically my company at a simple level makes websites and apps, and we work with all sorts of companies, startups, enterprise companies, on either creating a really cool new digital product or a marketing website or a digital experience at an event, you name it. And that's kind of what I do.
Hi, I'm Richard. I'm the CEO of The Marketing Optimist. We pitch ourselves as the marketing department you don't have. So we work with small to medium enterprises who have everything else that works for them, but they don't have a marketing department. So we come in and we do everything from marketing strategy to website build, SEO, social media, so paid advertising, training, and anything to do with marketing. I've been in marketing for over 25 years, so I'm pre-internet as well as internet savvy.
Great. So appropriately enough, today we are actually talking about online marketing and the importance of, as an emerging business, how do you develop an online presence and how much time and investment should you be putting into social media and other forms of online marketing, and what are the most effective strategies for converting website hits into conversions. So a very broad question to start. How important is online marketing to a small business?
Very. That's a simple answer.
Depends what you do, I think, though. Like sometimes when people are doing B2B and it's say like really, really early stages, I always felt like sales is more important, and that's broad when you say B2B, but sometimes marketing is a lot more relevant when it's a smaller cost of sale. If you're selling some big, £10,000 project or product, usually sales is maybe a better approach as a small business, but ultimately as the business grows, like marketing is important to every business, and running a business is like putting out fires. Like what is the most important thing to do right now, so.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I also think that from day one, businesses are really keen to just do stuff and just get stuff out there and be heard, when actually it's really important to make sure you get that you're ultimately, the problem you're solving, the pain points you're solving, that can be translated into your messaging, and that you get that message right and it's really resonating with your audience. And I think it's all about testing and trialing with marketing, I think, from day dot, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd completely agree. I mean, I've had a conversation with a couple of people today who are have got great product but don't know who they're actually selling it to, so they don't know what problem they're solving with their product. So it's really difficult to go out and market and go, hey, I've got this new guy I was speaking to earlier, he's got a booking system and it kind of books all sorts of things, and it can do clubs, or it can do like booking a car or all sorts of things. So he's just got really mixed messages about what on earth this does. And if you've got a mixed message, you can't sell that to your prospective client, because they want you to solve a problem. And if you can't tell them what problem it is you're solving for them, then they're not going to buy it from you. So it's really, really key to hone down on exactly who your market is before you do any marketing.
Yeah, and you might have a number of segments within your audience as well. Yeah. So, and your different segments, different things might mean different things to your segments. So you might have a broad kind of approach, but also some really key messages might be important and relevant to those different segments. So you need to really test and try it, see what works for each of your audience.
Like if I had a really broad brush about, because I guess ultimately what marketing, brand and sales are all about are like kind of growing your business as a whole. And if I had like three things, which I always consider in my business, is like, how am I acquiring new customers who have no idea about who I am or about who the business is, and then how am I then activating them so they now know who I am, they're on this planet and they know who I am, and how do I turn them into now a commercial buyer of our services, and then after I've done that, how do I retain them and keep them coming back for? So if I'm hitting those three things, so acquisition, activation and retention, how am I hitting all those things? And if I'm doing all those things well, then the business is going to grow, which is kind of what this sort of stuff is all about.
I also think it's important that when you say marketing, a lot of people can get really carried away and think has to be some sort of grand plan. Well, marketing is as simple as picking up the phone one customer at a time, or finding one customer at a time via LinkedIn or wherever you're doing it. So that one-to-one interaction is really what marketing is all about, because it can seem like, I'm going to do this grand plan or a grand SEO or grand whatever plans you can do. You can spend millions and millions on marketing, as we all know. But I always tell people that marketing is down to every single email you send, every phone call you make, every person you meet at the pub or at a networking. That's all marketing, because you are your business, especially in the early days.
Exactly that. And I think just to Sam's point as well, in terms of the different stages, so I always define that as get, grow, keep, which is the same as what you said, but it's ultimately how are you differentiating your comms or your content, or how are you adding value, the right value at the different stages of your customer journey, right from how you get them, what you do with them once you've got them, and then how you retain them.
And has your approach to online marketing changed all over the years, and if so, how?
I think being in online marketing, as I'm sure Sam will attest to, it changes every day pretty much. So what I was doing 10, 15 years ago is completely different to what I do today, just because of the tools and how the different systems change. Things just change constantly. It's a constant battle. It's like an arms race just to keep in front of how the different systems are working, from Google to social media, even to email deliverability and new forms of messaging that are coming up.
Yeah, and I think as well, just to add to that, I think the thing that's amazing now is the amount of automation that you can do within a business, in terms of tying all those things together. It can be far more efficient than what it used to be. And I think that's the thing I see in my role, businesses that aren't often aware that, if you do a bit of research and speak to other people, brands or companies that are slightly further ahead, who are maybe have automated some of these things, in terms of reporting or analytics, measurement, instead of spending a whole day going through, Google Analytics or going through reports and, with a fine-tooth comb, there are things that can help you draw that to the surface and automate it on a daily, weekly basis.
I guess the hardest thing is, it is things that are always changing, but it's also, if you look at it from a startup or an enterprise perspective, the things you'll need is totally different. So if you're an enterprise company, no matter what kind of company you're going to need, you are going to need some pay-per-click, you are going to need a website, you are going to need social media, you are going to need SEO, you are going to need print advertising going out, you are going to need door-to-door salespeople, you are going to need to run events, you're going to need to do everything because you're at that scale where it's massive. Whereas as a startup, the certain actions based on your business size, what you're selling, all that sort of stuff, that you kind of, what do I do first, and how do I do it well?
A lot of the audience of this podcast is people who work in tech and particularly with engineering and developing products. So they may not necessarily always be as up to date on what, or as interested in kind of online marketing and building websites and all the kind of things that you mentioned there. For someone like that who's got a product that they're ready to sell or a business they're ready to launch, but maybe isn't the most online marketing savvy, how does something like that get started? And what resources are available to help them to stay ahead of the trends?
Maybe just that. Their social media is the easy one, or a medium.com, which is a blogging platform where you could just start writing thoughts on it. It depends what you're doing, but I guess what you're alluding to is the engineering, side of things. Having that sort of thought leader perspective on a blogging platform like Medium is really good. A lot of time we think about blogging, it's just good for getting sort of Google traffic, that side of things. But actually, it's also really, really useful just for sharing that within your network and say, here's something I've got to say about something interesting, and that kind of draws people in.
Yeah, and I think as well, if you've got a couple of first customers, kind of keeping them close and using them as advocates almost, and really turning them into advocates, creating some case studies. There's some great tools now you can use like Canva and things like that, even if you're not a designer, that you can use to make something look quite nice, and turn some of those customer stories into nice case studies to push out on social.
Yeah, I think with the development of tools, particularly creating websites, it's so easy these days. So years ago, when you want to create a website, you had to need a bespoke system and a graphic designer and a whole host of people, and it would cost thousands. Well, now you can get a WordPress site up for a couple of £100, and I think that will be the first place to go, because social media is all great and everything else, but you don't have that much control of it. As we said before, the algorithms change, and build an audience in social media. You effectively want a website, which is a place where you can send people. So you get your social media out, and then the website is a place where you can control the message and what happens there to a far higher degree. And there's such a low entry barrier, to creating a website as compared to what it used to be years ago. You could have a really quick couple of page website up in a couple of hours if you really went for it. So that would be my place to start. Would be a really simple website, and then, as Sam said, using Medium and LinkedIn and other places where you can do long form blogging, where you can get the message out there. I would say that's a second spot.
It's hard to say, like, as well, like, without any context of what the person has, what is the most effective thing. So if it's like an Amazon seller and they sell all their products on Amazon, they don't need an online store. If it's like a consultancy business like us three guys, then you absolutely do need a website with case studies and stuff on it and that sorts of information. So it also depends on what they're selling, what the best first point of call is.
Well, if it's selling a physical product, which I'd imagine most of our listeners would be selling a physical product of some kind, or a software solution, it's usually either a hardware or a software solution. When it comes to those kind of major platforms like social media, like SEO, like pay-per-click, etc., and having a website as well, would you advise somebody who has a product to sell to invest the largest amount of time and resources into, and why?
Again, it's down to the need of that client and that person at the time, because if you want to sell something quick and you're not selling it via Amazon or something like that, so you've got people buying it from your own website, you've got your own e-commerce website. If you want it quick, then you have to pay for it. You're looking at AdWords or Facebook advertising or some other form of advertising like that, because that's basically you can turn traffic on and off by paying. That's a short-term solution. A longer-term solution is SEO, because that actually will give you longer-term value. The only problem is that it's a longer-term build. You can't SEO a page, put it up today, and it's suddenly ranked for where you want it to rank for. And it also depends on the competitiveness of your market. So if you're in a highly competitive market, SEOing a website to reach those heights is a hell of a long haul and will take a hell of a lot of budget. Whereas AdWords or something similar, you can jump straight to the top, but you're going to pay for it. Again, if it's competitive, you're going to pay even more for that. So unfortunately, there's no magic wand.
Yeah, it really depends on the business, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've got a really good few examples of businesses in the hub in Newcastle who their product aligns itself well to Facebook ads, and they, in the past 2 years, they've gone from, I think they were spending around £10-15 a day on Facebook ads, and they're now spending £1,500 a day. But they're turning over into the over £100,000 a month. So it's, they've really had to test that with all their different personas, and it's taken time to really understand what works and what doesn't, and what platform's right for them.
I think, like, if I was to give a practical piece of advice on a question which is kind of unanswerable, because it's like, how do I grow my business without any context of what the business might be? And it's obviously different for every other business based on what industry they're in, what scale they're in. But the piece of advice I would give to kind of that broad question is, if you're doing it yourself, literally just schedule out a day a week or half a day a week, and also an amount of money per month which you are willing to lose and experiment on your business every single week, every single month. And that way, don't make it such a large amount that you're kind of risking the whole business. But, for us, it might be like £500 a month we spend on marketing or something like that. To us, it's not the end of the world if that goes down the drain, but if it works and we get a client out of it, wow, amazing, or whatever. So, and then just try all these things, try your Facebook ads, try your SEO, try your pay-per-click, and see what works for you and for your business. And I think if you work with someone else as well, like, it's still good to know the basics of all these things. I mean, in our business, we're selling marketing, communications, and assets sometimes, and so we're not directly doing SEO and pay-per-click or anything for anyone. But the reason why I know about this is because I run the business, and I've kind of invested time to experiment into seeing what works for us. Is it cold calling? Is it, is it pay-per-click? Is it SEO? Is it Facebook ads? What works for our business? And it's going to be different from yours. So just invest that time to experiment every single month.
I think it's knowing where your customers are going to be as well. So when you talk about marketing, people always think about Facebook ads or SEO or websites or whatever. We do quite a lot of events, and the people who want to come to our events to hear us talk are also our customers. So that's a form of marketing without it being what people would think of traditionally. So by kind of understanding where your customers are, who they are, and getting to them, you can do things different ways. So marketing doesn't have to, again, as Sam said, there's lots of different ways to experiment and try new things, which you might not have think straight off the cuff will work. But I say events for us work really well.
Yeah, and I think for me, lastly on that, where is there any low-hanging fruit? Who's in your network? Who is there in your friends' networks, your colleagues' anyone in your team, their networks? Are there any influencers that you can reach out to who maybe are an influencer or have expertise in your field that you could perhaps piggyback on, or find it in that way to kind of reach out and share content through them, or to begin with.
And when it comes to social media, in terms of your own businesses, for you two, who manages your social media? Do you do it yourself, or is there a dedicated member of staff that does that for you?
We have somebody in-house, but that's definitely not his main job to do that. His main job is a designer, and as a small business, we kind of all have many hats. So yeah, we do have someone in-house doing it, but to be honest, we're a bit slack with our own social media. We kind of spend more efforts into pay-per-click a bit, cold email, running events, stuff like that. It's kind of our main new business generation stuff. I mean, most of our stuff comes through referrals. So social media is really important, but for us, it's always at the back seat. So maybe we should get someone doing it.
For me, like Sam, we put a lot of effort into our social media, but as a marketing consultant, our clients' social media comes first. But for us, LinkedIn is the one that we use really heavily. Myself and Chris, who works for me, we do quite a lot of work on LinkedIn, and it reaps rewards because we're a B2B business. So B2B LinkedIn, it works a treat.
Do you use like a specific sales strategy on LinkedIn? Like in InMail, or what do you find works? I
think for us, we do a lot of straightforward posting. So both on my personal account and Chris's personal account, and on a business account, sorry. And that raises our bar.
Yeah.
And then we get, like Sam, we get a lot of referrals. People know who we are, so I can go to a networking meeting and people go, Richard and I have no real idea how they are because I've only ever seen them as a small avatar. I've not really met a lot of people you've not always met everyone that you're connected to in real life. So what it does for us is we raise the bar, but then when people connect to us or look at us using LinkedIn, because we've got the upgraded tool, we look to see who's seen us, and then I proactively approach them and say, hi,
yeah,
I see you've looked at my profile, or you've connected to me, is there any way we can help? And just on a really kind of soft way doing that response. And oftentimes people go, actually, yes, I was looking for a marketing consultant, and can we have a meeting?
And Melissa, what do you advise when you're working with startups who maybe aren't particularly strong on social media? How would you advise them in terms of getting more engaged with that platform and making it work for them?
I think initially, if they're at idea stage, elbow grease, getting out there and really finding out what messages resonate with their assumed audiences and really testing that. But ultimately, to start building a bit of a presence, not assuming that your customers are everywhere on every single platform. They might all be on LinkedIn, especially if you're B2B, might be on Instagram. It really depends on what the industry is, what the business is, but it's really testing it and knowing how you're going to measure it as well, and just getting out there, a bit of the doing, and then reviewing it.
I'd say it's always good to look at your competitors. I mean, if you're doing something totally new, I don't really think that many of those ideas exist. Most of the stuff we're doing is we've got some competitor, or we've got some sort of similar product out there. Look at what they're doing, and always so for us, as an agency business, probably where agencies get them, I'm saying probably, but I've looked at the stats, so I know what they get. Probably where they get most of the business from is referrals, events, and LinkedIn, right? So do one of those, or at least one of those ideas, which is the winning idea that everyone else is doing, and then do something absolutely crazy that nobody else is doing. Because the problem is, for example, if you had an SEO agency and you was doing SEO as your only strategy, probably the other SEO agencies who are your competitors are also really good at SEO and also doing SEO. So if you do one thing that's just absolutely crazy, I don't know, sending mail outs, the old school way, and it's probably going to work because, you want to do the thing that everybody's doing because it obviously works for a reason, but there's going to be so much noise on that platform from your industry that it's also good to do something that's completely off piece, and that nobody else is doing because, yes, the potential is smaller, but you'll stand out from everyone else.
I think it's important to build, as an entrepreneur, to build your personal brand as well. Yeah. I think people can get really hung up on it's the company brand, but at the end of the day, people still buy from people, and that's why it's being out on LinkedIn as yourself elevates you is, because what I always tell my clients is, people want to see them. They need to be seen as an expert, because people want to buy from experts. You don't want to buy from somebody who vaguely knows what they're talking about. So whatever you're an expert in, and most clients are doing a business because they're really passionate about it. If they can demonstrate that they're really passionate about it and build their personal brand, then people come to them rather than necessarily to the business. And especially in early stage business, it's actually a bit easier to build a personal brand than a brand, because that takes a lot of time, effort, and money.
Are you all in agreement then that LinkedIn is kind of the most valuable of the major social media platforms for business?
For business,
B2B, maybe.
Yeah, B2B.
To business, yeah.
Yeah.
Business
I mean,
to business,
it's broad again, like, because I wouldn't say like for every single B2B, but I mean, in terms of what's got most reach, it depends on the demographic. I'd say Instagram's the most popular platform at the moment, but for kind of what I'm selling in my business, then LinkedIn is probably more effective. But I know other agencies doing very similar things to me who are absolutely killing it on Instagram, killing it on Twitter as well. So I think they can all work, and I really think it does just depend on. And that's an annoying thing to say on a podcast. It depends on who you are as an individual, what you're selling, and what that is. And yeah, if it's a big project costing thousands and thousands of pounds, probably LinkedIn and B2B is the route to go, because that's where those people are going to be, the decision makers. If you're selling T-shirts, it's probably, and it's a business to consumer side of product, then LinkedIn isn't the best place to be,
And I think one real key activity to do from the beginning is to really build your email list. Your customer database. So is there something of value that you can potentially give away for free online, a piece of gated content that's going to be valuable to your audience, that you can, create data capture their email address, and then start communicating with them in some way about the things that they care about, and really adding value and, again, demonstrating that expertise.
Yeah. That's one of the things. I'm a big advocate of collecting email data, because it's the one thing that everyone's got in their pocket.
Yeah.
Not everyone's on LinkedIn, everyone's on Facebook, everyone's on Instagram. You name everything, and you will find people who aren't on one or the other. Mm-hmm. But pretty much anyone who's anyone has got an email address.
If you can get into their inbox, ultimately,
if you get into
it's
their
gold.
inbox, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Or their phone. In fact,
Yeah.
some messaging apps are now taking over. I've seen stats that say that Messenger and WhatsApp, you get a kind of 90% open rate, because it's still a new thing. If you message somebody, if I send you a text now, which I'm not going to run another podcast, if I send you a text now, you're more than likely to go, I've got a text, and pick it up and read it. An email just used to have that when I first started getting emails. It was really, I've got an email, it was exciting. Now it's not, but messaging is still exciting, and people will react to it straight away. Like everything, it's got a lifespan. So eventually that will start to win. But at the moment, messaging is really big. So email's great, but if you can get people on a messaging app, potentially even better. Again, depending on what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Irrespective of like platform, I would say the lesson I've had with marketing for my own business compared to, I've got a B2C business as well. So, but yeah, for the one I'm talking about today in the B2B business, the difference is, the higher the value of the sale, the more direct and personal you have to be. Mm-hmm. So if you're selling something for $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, it's a hell of a lot of money, whatever number it is. That person wants to have an individual conversation with you, and that's where personal brand, a cold, direct email, hello, Mr. Smith, talking about something that's to do with them, for that person on that massive big sale. The really generic, unpersonalized email is not going to work for them. No. It might if you're selling the T-shirt is on one side of things, or something that's a lot lower value, because to be honest, when it's that lower value, there's no option of you going that direct, because it just doesn't scale. So on the lower end, if you're selling a low price product, you need to get so much reach that it's just not possible to be that direct. Whereas if you're doing B2B and they're quite expensive sales, it's best to speak to, hey Victor, I've seen your app, and I've seen I love that you've done this, but I think you could improve it in these areas, and here's a few of my ideas, and if you want to have a chat, let's jump on a call, or maybe even softer than that, but it's to Victor, and I'm talking about his app, and I've seen these things where I can help him with my app development company. It's completely tailored to that individual. Whereas if it's a T-shirt, it's like, hey, I've got cool, I'm from Nottingham Robin Hood T-shirts, and anyone from Nottingham, enjoy this,
Yeah, that's it. And that's where I think the enticing them in to, so if someone lands on your website and you have a bit of content in the background that you want, they want to download, you're going to educate them about something, or it's going to be interesting to them, them leaving their email address, I think that's where that could work. But yeah, I completely agree. In terms of the higher the value, the more personal and direct you need to be.
And when it comes to a website, if someone's building a new website for a new business from scratch, what are some of the things that the absolute must-haves for a business website?
It's got to be fast. It's got to be mobile friendly.
Yeah. Easy to use.
Easy to use. And again, we've talked about it already, about ensuring that the message, when somebody lands on it, it's solving that person's problem. Because you see so many websites where they talk about their technology, the size of their factory, the number of people that they employ. Well, actually, the clients, when they land there, don't care. They don't care if you've got 10,000 people working for you. All they want to know is, does your app, your bit of engineering, your technology or whatever, solve their problem? And if it doesn't solve their problem, and they're not getting the answers quick enough, then they go on to the next website that does solve their problem. So I think those are the key things for me.
And I think it really, again, depends on the industry, what the product is, who your target market is. And I think it's, if you've got a really aspirational brand and, does it do that for your target market? Does it, when you land on it, does it make people go, wow, I want to be a part of this, and therefore it's all about the brand and they're, really appealing to them. But yeah, I think the message is so important. It needs to be instantly clear what it is that you're offering.
Baseline is like what do you sell, and like what can I expect? So again, going on the extreme ends of things, like the t-shirt, it's like I sell t-shirts, or I'm a fashion company based in Nottingham, right? And then here's a picture of the packaging and the t-shirt, what it's going to look like when you're going to receive it, so what can I expect to get at my door, because nobody's just going to buy a t-shirt that says t-shirt £4 or whatever it is. And then for the B2B side of things, if you're doing consultancy, it might be, okay, so I build websites and apps, user experience design, here's some projects we worked on, the case study is the what can I expect, here are the results for someone else, and it's what do I do and what can I expect. And even better, if you can go why you do it, which is the whole Simon Sinek thing, that's really good as well. But I think the baseline is literally, I need to understand what you're offering if I'm going to go on your website. Otherwise, I'm not going to buy anything if I don't know what you've got,
And when it comes to SEO, do you feel like SEO is still as important as it used to be, or have other kind of mediums kind of overtaken it now in terms of where you want to put the majority of your investment?
I think most searches still start on Google. And if you're not SEOing, then you're missing out. You have to bear in mind that SEO is a slow game. As I said before, if you want to get to the top instantly, you're going to have to pay to play to get up there. But a good SEO that adds sustainability will keep you up there for a longer period, because Google wants good quality content. That's what, for me, SEO is still key, because it's where it still starts at the moment, until in however many years' time something we don't know exists yet changes, and then SEO maybe might not be so important. But at the moment, in today's climate, I think it is, and particularly it's building on itself as well with the advent of more voice search as well. So I think voice search is got to rely on Google, and a little bit more. It relies a little bit on Bing, weirdly, as well. But so I think SEO is still here to stay for the time being.
I mean, I'm quite limited in the technical knowledge about the landscape of SEO and pay-per-click, because it's not something we do. But on a broad sense, I think search engines are really good, because anyone who's searching for something that relates to your business has probably got intent. And so if I run a pay-per-click ad, or if I've got really good SEO and someone clicks on my website, they're quite a qualified buyer. Whereas if I'm, at least for what I do, putting out a Facebook ad, it's probably more something like a white paper. Whereas it might go straight to a sale from Google, because they're literally saying, I'm looking for an app development company, I'm looking for a user experience designer in Leeds or whatever. They literally want to buy right now. They've got intent. Whereas that's probably not going to work on Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads, because you're going onto LinkedIn and they're browsing through their newsfeed, trying to get their latest update on the business world, or their friends, on their social thing. They're not in a place where they're looking to buy an app or work with a UX designer, in my case, at that point. So the sell that I would have on those social media platforms is entirely different. The intent-driven stuff is really important.
Yeah, and I think from, again, my experience with coaching the businesses we work with, a lot of them will start a blog, start content, and just start writing stuff that they think that they should be writing about, that they assume their customers or audience want to read about. So something we always do is go through that kind of keyword research, and okay, how do you actually know what people want to read about, and the content that they want to consume. So I think it's key to validate your thinking as well in terms of what you think about your audience, what are they searching for, to build that into your strategy.
And how do you compete with, as a small business, with the big hitters that tend to dominate like the front pages of Google?
It's always really difficult, but I think something that Sam alluded to earlier is thinking a little bit differently. So a really good example is if you're selling jewellery. We've got clients who sell jewellery. We've had some in the hub in here. If you're trying to rank for the word jewellery, but you actually do bespoke silver jewellery for goths, then go for that. You're never gonna rank for jewellery, because I don't know who ranks for jewellery, but it's probably Gucci or some mass conglomerate who spent millions and millions on brand and SEO and or content and everything. But if you're selling bespoke silver jewellery for goths, and you're a goth and you're searching for gothy silver jewellery, it's a smaller market. It's a niche, and I think people, particularly startups, can get really overawed by the market for this is £1 billion, and I'm going to make this huge chunk of it. When actually all they need is a really small segment of it to be really, really successful. So ensuring for me is it's understanding your niche, not going for the big hit, because you just most of the time you're never going to win. If I try to compete, so I focus my SEO on Leeds and Yorkshire. So I'm actually ranking for marketing consultant Leeds at number 1, and have been for a while now, which is great for me. It's quite an achievement. But if I tried to do that for London, the market's just too big. I can't compete on that. I don't want to compete on that anyway. But I've looked at it and thought, well, why would I even try? I'd just kill myself trying to compete for London or even Manchester potentially. But in Leeds, I've focused in on it, and I'm winning.
The way we do it is like we use pay-per-click, which kind of bypasses it, so it costs a lot of money for a click, but at least you're there, number 1, straight away, for as long as you run that campaign. So, the benefit of having really good SEO is it's now free, and you that's going to last, and it puts longevity in your business. Whereas if I want a result right now and I have I just need a sale today, SEO is not going to work for me today. It might in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or whatever. Whereas pay-per-click, I could turn it on, and app development keyword might be like £18 a click, which is a hell of a lot, but that's an intentful buyer, and if it's a big sale if it comes through. So it depends what you need,
We just to tell you a very brief story. So we had a business in in Newcastle hub who just on that actually around jewellery, and I was kind of challenging him around, because that's our job. We have to challenge in our coaching sessions, and it was around, well, how are you going to really cut through the noise around the term jewellery? And one of the products that they sold were ash lockets. Okay, to carry people's ashes in.
Oh right, wow, really?
Yeah, so naturally it's quite like what
niche.
you said, Richard, about being niche and a bit different. So that's how they managed to actually drive an awful lot of traffic to their site and to their content, was by using that.
Yeah. That's niche, I guess.
It is very niche, but the cool thing about that is that anyone searching for an ash locket is going to find their website that says ash locket, and they go, that's exactly what I need.
Exactly.
So their conversion rate is going to be huge. As opposed to somebody who's I don't know, Gucci. I'm going to stick to Gucci because I can't think of any other jewelry companies. But
because they're number 1.
Yeah, because they're good. But you're not going to find. You're not going to match your search. Is not going to match what you can buy from Gucci.
Yeah,
I'm presuming they don't sell ash lockets. I mean, maybe they do. But if your entire ethos is around that, then it's a winner.
And it gets people in, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a small niche, but if there's enough money to be made out of that niche, as long as it's a profitable niche, then I would say that's the target.
There are an awful lot of people that want them. So
right, okay.
Sam, you talked a little bit earlier then about how much your company uses paid search, and that's something I wanted to kind of spend a little bit of time on as well. When is this kind of similar question to SEO? When is paid search the most effective, and what are some of the strategies you can use to make sure you are getting a return on investment? Because it is often a very significant investment compared to other strategies.
I mean, we'll preface this by saying I'm literally terrible at optimizing our paid search campaigns. They're really, really unoptimized. And I guess I just kind of did a Udemy course and read a bit up online, so I'm not the buy-all export in the technical side of the pay-per-click, but it's been really useful for us because, as I say, it's like a tap. So actually we're a bit short this month. I've got a team of 7 people, and that's a really big wage bill for, at least for me as a personal individual, to not have any projects on. So it's been really useful for when we just need clients now. We need a project to work on. We're project driven in our business, so it can mean we're absolutely full on at some times, and there's not enough time in the day, and it can mean other times it's really quiet and really so pay-per-click's been a good thing for me to be able to turn on. I think where I need to grow and where I think is the trap is we were looking for a lot of keywords in UX design, app development, web development, that sort of thing, design agency, and we were kind of getting a lot of crossover in terms of we might get people looking for jobs and careers when actually we were looking for sales in this element. Or we don't really do branding, for example, or we're not really like a fashion specific design agency, something like that. And we were getting these broad matches coming in from Google, where actually we really, our buyer and the people we're speaking to aren't searching for those things. So pay-per-click can be really good. I would suggest just doing a course on it, Udemy or something like that. I think the one I bought was about £7. Although, as I say, I'm not very good at it, so maybe get a better one. You can get really good results. I mean, I was running this campaign for maybe 3 weeks for UX design terms, app development, these terms I was saying before. And for 2.5 weeks of it, I was just getting careers inquiries and people trying to sell me stuff. And I was spending something like £40 a day. So it's quite expensive, this campaign. And I was like, flipping heck, this is an expensive experiment. And I was going to cut it off. And then next thing you know, we got a massive client through it the next day. I went to their office in Manchester, and we'd signed a deal for $4,500 in literally minutes. It was crazy. But it was only 30 minutes before I was going to sack it off, and I was saying, no, I'm just getting all these people applying for jobs. We don't have any jobs at the moment. So I guess again, the same thing with the pay-per-click thing. It's stick with these experiments, have an amount of money and an amount of time each month that you are willing to lose. Because if I didn't have that, I would have just said, well, I've lost 80 quid now and I've got nothing in, so I'll never do pay-per-click ever again. So yeah, I guess sticking it out, trying it out, doing a course on it, or working with a professional who knows what they're doing is probably what we should do. But yeah.
I think the great thing with pay-per-click is you can target the right keywords, you can craft your ad perfectly and get it up to number one. You can optimise for the click-through and how much it's going to cost you. Coming back to your website, if once they've clicked through, they'll land on your website, and again, it's not right for the customer. It doesn't answer their problem. It's not easy to navigate. It's not easy to contact you or do whatever it is you want them to do. It will fail. There's too many people who go, right, I'll just turn pay-per-click on, and we'll land it at the home page rather than a specific targeted landing page that matches exactly with the search intent. So somebody search for going for the gothic silver jewellery again, and it brings you into a home page that's full of watches and things. Well, the client comes through and goes, oh, where's my gothic silver jewellery? This is just Timexes. This is not what I wanted. Whereas they should have had a targeted individual page that talked exclusively about them, about the quality and the finish and the testimonials from previous customers and all those things. And sometimes people too easily forget that that's the ad, but if the website experience doesn't match up to the ad, then you're going to waste a hell of a lot of money because those experiences don't match. And then the client customer goes, well, this is not what I wanted. And by the time they've clicked on your ad, you've already spent your £18 UX things. So yeah, no, it's really expensive.
I mean, and as well, I would research other companies in my industry. I've done it loads and loads of times to see what they're doing, or just to go on their sites for that. So you are going to get a lot of the bad thing about pay-per-click is you are going to be spending a lot of money on people who just aren't interested in your service as well. So that's why it's all the more important when someone who actually is potentially interested comes in, that they're getting the right message and it's optimized, because again, it's really expensive, as Richard is alluding to, and if they get there and they don't convert, it's just adding to that problem and getting worse and worse and worse. And some terms are super expensive, casino terms, like over 100 quid sometimes, for a click, which is crazy when you think, if we went on to I don't know, Bet365 now, and we searched a gambling term and found that, we could charge them a few grand by just all laptopping up. I'm not suggesting anyone does that on this podcast, but yeah.
In terms of conversion, Richard, what has happened to your conversion in terms of paid search?
Again, it does vary. It does vary because as kind of Sam said, so if you're selling cars, so if you're selling BMWs, you can afford to pay a lot for somebody to click through. You can pay 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds a click, because you might be selling a £300,000 car potentially. So it depends on that. I would say that the really key thing, and this is to get quite dull, is that if you are going to use pay-per-click or any kind of paid mediums like that, make sure that all your analytics and your conversions on your analytics are tied up to the absolute nth degree, so you can see what you're buying. what you're spending. Sorry. So my experience from when I used to work in direct marketing before the internet came along, we would have a cost per pack. So we would send out envelopes and packs and things. You'd have a cost per pack, and you'd work out how much it cost you to send those out, how many sales you got, and you divide that so you get your cost per conversion. It's too easy for people just to go, I'm going to spend 200, 300, 400, 20,000 pounds even, without even knowing what a cost per conversion is. And it does take a little bit of work to tile those up, and if you're using a professional company, they'll be able to tile it up for you. But knowing the end result of I spent X and got X back is really important, and a lot of people just miss that.
Yeah.
And the conversion rates, again, it's not easy because it does depend on your industry, depending on what your conversion rate could or would be, depending on what some people, as low as 1% is fine because of what it is. Other people, they need kind of 20-30% because it's maybe a fast moving good, like Sam said, like a t-shirt. You want a high conversion rate, whereas a car, a low conversion rate is fine.
I think that measurement that you mentioned, the knowing those metrics,
Yeah,
really
knowing your
important,
numbers,
aren't they?
yeah.
And I think that's something we find certainly earlier stage businesses, it's just not on their radar for most of them. You know, even the ones that are actively doing, you know, have a marketing plan and that whole, the really understanding the metrics and what they should be measuring and actually measuring it and actually referring to it and using it as a, you know, something to really refer to and as a benchmark.
Yeah.
It's something that I think people don't do enough.
I think on the measurement
sure.
as well, I think you alluded to it earlier, is there are lots of numbers you can get. So if you look at Google Analytics or any platform on the back of it and it shows you all these numbers, it can be really overawing. So what you need to do is focus on what are the 2 or 3, maybe even 4 important numbers, and just focus on those and forget all the linger times and all the things that you can really look for, because if you can get lost in the numbers. So focusing on what the key numbers are is really key.
And I think knowing the metrics and the numbers for your business will be different for the person next to you. So a SaaS business, for example, their metrics and the key things they need to look for that are relevant to their model will be completely different to, you know, a consultancy. So it's being aware of that and researching the metrics and the measurement side of it as much as anything else.
So we move on to a very broad question next. What would you say is the most underrated online marketing technique?
Good content. And when I say good content, it's content that your customers want to consume and where the messaging is correct, but linking it all together. So I think often people just go, oh yeah, I've started a blog, done that, tick, and they do maybe a blog a month or every other month, but actually doing content really well and having a good content plan in place that actually drives people inbound to your site. And again, obviously it depends on the industry and the business and the products and so on, but for me, I think not enough businesses do that and do it well.
I think I'd agree. Without content, without good, unique, interesting content that people want to engage with, share and react to, because that's what we want people to do, to buy, to pick up the phone, do whatever, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. If you've got boring, flat, uninteresting content, then nobody cares. And if nobody cares, nobody makes an action and nobody picks up the phone, and the business disappears. You see a lot of people who just, through no fault of their own, think that they can write 3 paragraphs on a web page and that'll do that, or just do the kind of really, really bare minimum. But if they put themselves in their own customers' shoes, they would never buy from a company who'd done that to them. So why they think that their clients would buy from them, I never really get. But there's a lot of work goes into it. I ran a social media masterclass the other day for some clients, and we talked about how much content they need to put out a day. So 1 LinkedIn post, 3 tweets, a Facebook post, and maybe an Instagram. And a lot of people went, what, a day? And they were really shocked. And unfortunately, as I said earlier, it's kind of an arms race, because if you're not there, then somebody else is there. And that's just social media. That doesn't mean that all these posts have to be kind of unique. What's really good is to write or to create some really well-written content that's relatively long, but then you can reuse that. So you can chop up the paragraphs into tweets. You can recreate that into your long blog post can be changed into a video. It can be turned into a podcast. It can be turned into a meme, a graphic, an infographic, and be reused several times. So you're effectively writing things once and then adapting. so that you're not constantly thinking, I've got to rewrite everything fresh all the time. That's just crazy. And not everything has to be new all the time either. Refreshing old content that you've used, re-looking at that and pushing it out again, because it might be old to you, but a lot of your clients will have never seen it. So there's not this need to be constantly creating something new. Far better to spend more time creating something great and then disseminating that in different ways and using that for quite a while, kind of living off that great content.
Yeah, I think I read the other day, one bit of great content is far better than just having 20 bits of mediocre content out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, completely agree in terms of resharing it. I think especially if you can create something like infographics and really just cut it up and you see people write a piece of content and they share it once on their Twitter feed. And that's it.
Yeah.
And it's what the amount of effort,
several
time,
hours
research,
writing for one tweet,
it's a
and
real
it's gone.
waste. So yeah, resharing.
And on the flip side of that question, what would you say is the most overrated online marketing tactic?
I'm going to be controversial and say content as well. Because I don't know, it depends what you're selling again, but I feel like sometimes people invest so much time into that element of it and it's got no reach. So like, for example, Facebook pages, like the organic reach is pretty appalling. So spending money on paid advertising can really scale that up quickly. So it's great to be doing the organic stuff to some level, but once you know what's working and once you're getting results from it, even on a small scale, use paid advertising to scale that up, or it just depends on the business. So for example, if I was asking someone to start another business exactly like the same like mine, the last thing I would say to focus on is social media. I'd say pick up the phone and do some cold calling, or go to a networking event, or go to events, run an in-person thing, because of that direct personal relationship. Whereas when we are doing the content thing, like scaling that up, so like if it's a really interesting white paper we've made, about website performance, something like that, let's scale that up. Let's get that out to as many people as possible, rather than spending hours and hours and hours making this piece of content for 4 people to see it, and then probably none of them were looking for website performance optimization at that point. Whereas if thousands of people have seen it, because you've scaled that content up, you're much more likely to convert. So it's that time input really to the output. Like, content's amazing, but if it's taking you hours and hours and hours to do these things and it's not going out to that many people, then you need to scale up with paid advertising, or you need to take a more direct approach.
For me, I think the thing that I see all the time that people are very quick to implement, because they think they should, is a monthly or a weekly newsletter. Now, I'm a big believer in email, and I think a very good newsletter, preferably segmented, has its place. But I think new businesses often think, right, we'll send out a newsletter. But in terms of the content that they put in the newsletter is often just an update on the company. And nobody cares. So it is again back to, what value are you delivering for them? So for me, the most overrated thing is the newsletter, but however done well, could be also the best thing.
I think I'm going to kind of agree with both of you. It's content without any intent.
Yeah.
So people just write something, and you go, well, why do people care about what you've written? And you go, so people write a bit of content. It'll be about some random subject, whatever it is that's relevant to their business, but the title of it, the subject of it, everything they've thought about it, nobody will ever search for what they're talking about. Nobody will, and if in my mind, if somebody will never search for it, then even if they find it, even if I email it you still won't care about it, because it's not. Well, why have you done that? What are you hoping to achieve? Well, it's just a kind of a list of machinery we just bought in, or the fact we went for a cup of coffee or whatever. Unless there's a story behind that, or a reason for somebody to do something, or to be interested, or spend some time with it. So content for content's sake, although I'm a big advocate of content for content's sake is a waste of time. And it's easy to sit and go, right, I'm going to write a 5,000 word blog, white paper, whatever, but if there's no why, what are people going to do with that? What are you after? You go, I don't know. I'll stop and make some phone calls.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking of all those like ranty posts on LinkedIn about like someone's new car, or complaining like about like an ex-employee, and like sometimes because they're ranty and they're controversial, they'll get loads of engagement and everyone's commenting and stuff like that. But I dread to think like how little they sell of their products to do with that post, because it's nothing to do with what they're actually doing.
It's engagement for the wrong reasons, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, so to kind of flip it on its head, a lot of the best kind of content can be really short form. So I'll go on. I did a blog post sorry, not a blog, a LinkedIn post. I was trying to write my About Us page for my own business, and that's the hardest thing in the world to do, to write your own About Us page. So I put a really short LinkedIn post and then said something along the lines of, what's the thing that you most like seeing in an About Us page? It was literally 2 lines. And I got loads of people responded and said, I like to see this. They engaged really heavily. And and from that I got some interest for potential clients. But what I also did is I went through that blog post and I asked everybody who commented, I said, could I use this as a blog post, please? And they went, yeah, of course we can. So I actually created some content out of their user-generated content, wrote the blog and then linked them all to it and then reshared it again, and they all reshared it. But what it did is it then also showed me my expertise, because it was a marketing question without me selling marketing. It got a bit Bruce Lee, like the marketing without marketing.
Marketingception.
Yeah, it was. It did get a bit like that. But it was that case of, well, people cared.
Yeah.
Because I asked them a question that wasn't leading, but it was relevant to what I was doing. Do you know what I mean? It kind of built me up it improved my expertise a little bit.
That is interesting.
Without me going, buy this, buy that, do this, do that. I just asked a question. And people like to answer their own. They've got opinions.
People
they
like
love
that
being
kudos,
asked.
don't they?
Yeah, they like that kudos. They like to be asked. They like to be asked their opinions. And I think too much marketing shouts at people and doesn't ask for any kind of response. And that's, again, going back to bad content. It's that content that goes, buy these shoes. And people go,
yeah. And I think that's where you can use your customers as well. So not your, necessarily the samey kind of testimonials, but, that's clearly they've been told what to say some of the time. But I think really getting your customers to doing really good case studies. It might be video case studies, and other people talking about you. So what are the relevant publications or online platforms or whatever it may be aligned to you that you can potentially write for or guest blog for or vice versa? And it's just about that reach, isn't it?
And to end things on a kind of positive note, what's one of the most successful online marketing campaigns that you guys have been involved in, either in your current businesses or in past careers, and why do you think it succeeded as well as it did?
One of the most successful things that we've done recently is for our smallest client, and he's a chip shop in Ackworth, which is, anyone knows Ackworth, you won't know Ackworth, but it's between Wakefield and Pontefract, and it's in a small village, and we do a Facebook marketing for him. We don't pay a penny for it. We do quite a lot of offers and promotions, competitions and stuff. What we do is we do things like win a £25 Chippy Tea voucher, and it goes ballistic. We get 20,000 people reached by this one thing, and the village has only got like maybe 3,000 people, if that. We get a massive reach. And what we've done is we've built him up as he's the local chip shop. So we've gone for that personal brand thing on a really small scale, and down to, we were talking earlier about conversion. Effectively, all he wants is a full chip shop, and every night he gets a full chip shop and he makes a fortune out of doing it. So, and I use that as a case study quite a lot when I do my talks, because it's something that people can really get their head around. It's very easy to understand. We do this, we sell chips. It's not difficult.
It's kind of having that clear goal, isn't it?
Yeah, he's got a very clear goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very clear goal. We don't do anything crazy. We talk about fish and chips, and people like fish and chips, and he's got a really good reputation, and his shop's always full. Just a really simple idea. It costs him virtually nothing to do it, but it's really, really effective. So yeah, kind of hyper local stuff. That's one of my. It's the success one that I really like talking about. It makes me smile.
I'd enter that competition. What about you guys?
I guess for a client, it's probably around, like on a marketing website, it's like increasing conversion rates, like this story I alluded to before, projects like that. On an app project is what we do as well. Like it's kind of increasing retention, or like the drop off rate if it's like a SaaS company. But you can go and read on our website about some case studies if you want to find out more about that. But for ourselves, probably like to throw a span in the works, it's more the sales side of things. So I think the most effective sort of marketing and sales campaign I've ever ran is going onto a website called Angel List. It's a startup community, literally finding all the startups that are hiring designers and developers right now and reaching out to every single one of those companies and see if we can help them. And that's probably the most effective single campaign that I've done.
For me, I think from a marketing perspective, so my previous kind of life, so I worked at Sage Software within their marketing team, the head office in Newcastle, and my job ultimately was to increase retention rates, and we would do that through keeping in contact with them, in terms of really reminding them of the benefits. So back to that message and that real true benefit. What is the true benefit of the product or the service that you're that you're buying into or that you're renewing or whatever that might be or subscribing to is so important, because often with subscription or whether it's SaaS business, whatever it may be, people forget what they're paying for. So it's that having a channel, a constant series of communications that relates to them, and that they can understand what the value is.
Well, thanks guys, this has been a really, really interesting discussion. If our listeners want to learn a little bit more about you guys and the businesses that you run, where can they find you?
So Sam Ducker, you can get me on like my personal social media if you really want, at Sam Ducker on most platforms, and then you can find out more about my company, luckyduck.digital. Yeah, that's it. So that's the web address.
So for me, people can find me on LinkedIn, it's Melissa Beckett, or Twitter, Melissa Katie.
I'll just go for the business because you'll never spell my surname. So if you look for the Marketing Optimist, so marketingoptimist.co.uk, or you'll find us on every social media.
And you can find out more about Element 14 and this podcast at element14.com. Element 14 is the world's largest online community for engineers, makers and tech professionals. So visit element14.com/community for more information on that. And yeah, we'll be back next month with another discussion. So thanks a lot, guys, and bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.